Today on the Therapy Dogs Australia podcast, we are very lucky to have a returning guest with us. Tamara Shead has a wealth of information when it comes to puppy development, ethical breeding standards, and animal health. If you haven't listened to our first episode with her in season 1, we strongly recommend checking that one out as well. Grab a cup of tea and let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode with Therapy Dogs Australia, the podcast. We are very lucky because we have Tamara Shead back on the podcast with us. We had Tamara on in the early days, which was nice, talking about early neurological stimulation, ENS, with puppy development and puppy culture. And that was a really popular podcast as well, I might add.
Yeah.
We had really great feedback. Yes.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Loved it. They were so interested. And so we've been wanting to get Tamara back on to talk about the stages after ENS in puppy development. So I'm just thinking maybe we should just do another little quick bio. I know a lot of people would be listening to this and have listened to the first one, but just for any newcomers, Tamara, do you want to just do another little quick bio for?
Yeah, sure. So I won't go into as much detail as the first one.
Yes.
But basically, I'm a breeder of golden retrievers. Fairly new in terms of breeding. I've only been doing it for about 3.5, coming on to 4 years now. But originally I was a school teacher, so I've got a background in education, which feeds into my breeding and education of our families and that through our breeding program. So there's a real interest for me in how puppies' brains work, how best to develop them. So they're surprisingly close to children. So in terms of that, so I find that really interesting and can draw on a lot of that educational side. And then my primary job is an animal acupuncturist and rehab therapist. So I've got a clinic on our farm, which I'm at the moment, and we treat everything. So performance dogs. I started out doing horses. I don't do that as much because the dog side is so busy now.
Wow.
And I get to be at home and breed and, have a lot of stuff happening on the farm here. So I've tried to sort of stick to the clinic rather than traveling around, which when you work on horses, that's all you do.
Yeah.
So I've changed from that and just loving it. So the clinic side is awesome. And then the breeding side, I find it came from the acupuncture side as well, because I was getting a lot of dogs with problems, families that are picking up puppies that they've had zero education on, and then they come to me with like hip dysplasia and all these genetic diseases and all these things. So what we try to do with our breeding program is build something that is, we have dogs that are health tested, that, we're going to a lot of depth with our health testing. And then we obviously have this whole program of educating our families so that when the puppies leave us, we're sending puppies out into the world and hopefully never seeing them in shelter situations or anything like that. So, and I'm hopefully never seeing them through my doors with issues. So far, so good.
There's heaps of info on how Tamara prepares her puppies and puppy families in the first podcast, and you should listen to it because it's flipping awesome. It's fascinating. It's amazing. And especially if you're looking for a breeder, this is the kind of quality of breeder that does exist out there. So you just got to find them. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. You might not find anybody as good as Tamara, but...
Oh, gee, no, you will. My mentors, they're amazing. That's who we learn from.
Good. That's good
to know. People that have been there for 50 years,
Wow,
laying the foundations of this,
There's so much more to it than just picking a dog off of a picture on the internet. It's picking the breeder. Pick the breeder first, then pick your dog.
Yeah, you need to have as good of a relationship with your breeder as your husband, I reckon. Because when things go wrong, you need to be able to pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
That's actually something that no one really talks about, the fact that you should feel like you can reach out to your breeder.
And it's amazing how many people don't. Like I
Mm.
follow obviously all the golden retriever pages on Facebook, and I see how many people go there for advice, and I'm like, why are you not speaking to your breeder? Like, this is the person that raised your puppy for 9 weeks. Like, these are the people that are up with everything. You should be able to feel that you've got a relationship with them, that you can just call them up and have that. So that's what we're trying to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool. I was just trying to think. So with ENS, which if you're not familiar with, whoever's listening, we go into a lot of depth in the first podcast, so go and listen there. But what was it was a very short space of time in the puppy's development that ENS is something that you look into, and then it goes, the next stage of the puppy development is at what week?
So three, so 3 to 12 days is your ENS period, or your neonatal period. And then you've got your transitional period, which is 12 to 21 days, which is kind of where the pups are like opening their eyes and things that, sort of happening slowly. It's sort of it's a kind of a boring time for the breeder, in the sense that, you kind of got to let them bond with their mum, and they just sort of feeling their way around the world. There's a lot you can do, but there's a lot you can't do with that phase. So you're just kind of biding your time until you get to this 3 to 12 week period, which is what we're going to cover today.
Yes, that's right.
And that's your socialization period. And then you've got your juvenile period after that. So 12 to
and
under
puppy
adult.
culture. And puppy culture is I know that's not just ENS. That's what we talk about when we talk about puppy development in general, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like one chapter.
Yes.
The basis of puppy culture is pretty well what we'll go through in this podcast today. So it's what happens from that 3-week period until those puppies leave and beyond. Cool. So I mean, she's pretty wild, the chick that wrote puppy culture. She like keeps her puppies to 12 weeks. I'm like, man, how do you do that? I know there are breeders that do it, like, take my hats off, because the amount of work you've got to do within the program is huge. And like, she does it. She actually gets it done. So she's got bull terriers. They're hard.
Yes.
So yeah, she's in the best position to write this program for all of us to follow.
Fantastic. So
are we saying now, sorry, is the cutoff, the critical period for socialization, the cutoff 12 weeks? Because I think we used to say 16 weeks for that, but I think some different research came out, and there was a few different numbers being thrown around. Yeah, so it depends. Yeah, there's a lot of research on that, but you can say pretty confidently it's 3 to 12 weeks at this stage. Okay. It doesn't mean that up to the 16-week period there isn't any type of development happening. You can definitely still have a good impact, but they've found, when they've studied behaviours and that at the 12-week mark is when it makes it a lot harder for the dogs to take on new things. So that's where the decline begins. Okay. So yes, the critical period is probably up to 16 weeks, but the best time within that frame is 3 to 12 weeks. So the newer stuff is kind of covering to the 12 weeks.
Which is definitely good to know as well for people that are adopting puppies, say at 8 weeks or 9 weeks old, because there is still that critical socialization period that they need to be considering.
There's a lot that the owners need to know and do, because they're most of the part of it, really, when you get into it. So this podcast probably isn't just for breeders. This is probably more for families that are taking their puppies home.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
We're literally just setting up a foundation, and that's it. And then we've got to really trust that our families have taken on board all that information that we've fed them over the past 8 weeks, and that they feel really comfortable in what they have to do, because what they do sets their dog up for the rest of their life. Like, literally, I'm not being dramatic. Like, what you do in the socialization period literally will have an effect on them as an adult, negative and positive.
Yeah. I feel like it's a hard concept for people to grasp. Like, it's a really tricky one. One of the things that I think contributes to that is that vets give different advice. So what do we do? Because people ask dog trainers all the time, and dog trainers pretty much overwhelmingly say you just need to keep your dog safe from parvo. That's what the vet's concern is the vaccinations that aren't finished until that must be 16 weeks, is it? When
Yeah, your last
finish?
vaccination is at 16 weeks. Yeah.
So people are concerned about taking the dogs out into the community because they take the puppy in to get vaccinated, and the vet says you mustn't take this puppy anywhere, can't go to dog training, can't go anywhere until it's 16 weeks old. And then, you know, there's conflicting advice that people get from their breeders and from dog trainers that are like, well, we start training puppies and, you know, well, training them, being exposing them, socializing them before that 16-week period because of this cutoff time. How do we consolidate that for people, do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that? Is it controversial?
For me, there is more risk in a badly socialized dog than the risk of parvo or distemper. Like distemper now is pretty well not even around. Like, don't get me wrong, parvo is easy to get. And at the moment, there's a lot of it. We had one of our pups in the litter actually get parvo after they left us. They, spent a week in hospital. Thankfully, she was okay and covered by our breeder insurance. So it's as easy as somebody walking parvo into your house. Like,
right,
you know, it's on pathways, it lasts for months. If it's in soil, it can last for years. So that's a real risk. Like, it's a real thing. And at the moment, I'm hearing of a lot of cases around. So it's not something to mess around with, but it's easy to limit your risks. And it's all about vaccination. That puppy hadn't had its second vaccination yet. It was 2 days before its second vaccination. And yeah, it's bad luck, but it's not something that I would say absolutely wrap your dog in cotton wool over. I think behaviorally, if you don't socialize a puppy, you end up with probably euthanasia down the track. It's that bad.
It's serious. Yeah. Or a dog that can't go anywhere, can't leave the yard, you can't have it around guests. Like, it's
exactly.
It's drastic.
Yeah. So I don't think families need to freak out over that. And a lot of vets are on board with that now. It's getting better, and they're starting to educate them. So the biggest thing is, obviously, you don't want to get me started on vaccinations, but obviously if you vaccinate, so we sort of try to vaccinate around the 8 to 9 week mark. And this is mostly because the maternal antibodies are dropping around then. Well, we just know the dogs have finished feeding off their mum, so you know they've been weaned. The antibodies will drop right up to 16 weeks. You can never really know unless you titer test where that puppy's at. So we try to vaccinate then, because really the 3 vaccinations is just stimulating the immune system in order to get a response. It's not that they absolutely have to have 3 vaccinations to be fully covered, as is explained incorrectly to a lot of people. So for example, we vaccinated my little girl Maggie that was in these litters. We had these ones done at about 7 weeks because I had 2 litters at the same time. So we're trying to get them together on age. So the youngest were 7 and the oldest were 8. And then I hold out until 16 weeks usually, and then vaccinate then. Or you can vaccinate at like your 10 to 12 weeks, and then you can titer test at 16 weeks. So with Maggie, in her case, we ended up vaccinating at 12 weeks and titer testing at 16, and she was fully covered. Most puppies will be, and if you actually read the vaccination recommendations, they recommend 2 vaccinations and they're covered. So usually by the time they've had their second a week later, they're fairly safe. This doesn't mean go out and like chuck them in dog parks and take them to the beach and put them on sidewalks and all of that. You still, until you're 100% sure, you're still really careful. It doesn't mean you don't have to get them out though. You know, you can go to Bunnings now, put your dog in the trolley, drive them around. You can take them on car drives. You can sit. I take my dogs out. Like, we've got a coffee shop. She comes out to the coffee shop, sits there, listens to live music. We just take a blanket, put her on the blanket. You know, just limit your risks in that you're not chucking the dog down everywhere. Like, because I guess what my point is that a parvo can come into your house just as easily. So really by wrapping them in cotton wool, if they're going to get it, they're going to get it. So,
Yeah.
you know, be careful. Don't take them somewhere where the risk is super high, but just don't risk your dog not getting socialized.
Yeah. Just one of those things in life, hey?
Yeah,
just gotta
you make a decision.
That's you just got to make a call, guys, and do the best you can. And I know it's hard because it's scary,
It's
and
scary.
the vets do scare you over it, and puppies die from parvo. That's absolutely can be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I would very strongly encourage you to have pet insurance from before you even pick that puppy up. What does your breeder's insurance, how long does that cover for?
So we
I've
use
never even heard of that.
Yeah, well, no, all breeders are offered that. So we use Trupanion. They cover our puppies for 30 days from the day they leave us. And then if the families sign up with the same insurance company, most of them are like this as far as I know, then they won't have to do a 30-day waiting period. So it just continues on. But Trupanion's awesome in that they have unlimited cover. So that's why we went with them. And literally they came through for this family. You know, they covered everything for him. So because
it would
it's
have
a
been
free
a fortune in hospital for a week.
Yes,
Would have
from
been
what I was
such a
told,
shock.
it was like about $6,500 for a week.
Yeah.
In there, and they covered like 80% of it or some 90% of it, I think he said.
Wow.
So, and that puppy hadn't done much. Like they didn't take it, you know, anywhere crazy or whatever. But then, you know, you're exposing them. They get on a plane. Like that puppy flew to Sydney, you know. So there's things, but it can happen.
Oh gosh,
it's not unusual.
Yeah,
But definitely don't stop them.
The high risk areas being like especially like dog parks and really busy spaces, if anyone's not aware of that already. And I've heard that it can live in dirt like pretty much forever. And actually,
if it's exposed to sunlight, it's only a couple of months.
Die.
Okay.
Yeah, it will die. But look, I mean, you just don't take your brand new puppy out on a lead and walk them around everywhere. You carry them, you get them the little pram, you know, you
there's
have
so
blankets,
many pet trolleys.
crates are awesome.
You get secondhand ones on Gumtree and
they're great. And a lot of our families.
How do you know that, Max?
I've been down that road.
You're not telling us.
I'm the one that's pushing in the trolley. No.
Are you
when he was
pushing
little
your puppy around in a trolley?
That's me. Like, I mean, personally, I don't do the pram thing, but the carry crates are awesome. You tuck in the carry crates, and it teaches your dog to be crate trained. Get out, you know, sit them on your lap. Like,
what about one of those holders that people put human babies in?
That would be good.
You can wear your puppy like that.
I think we need to patent
if Dougie was
something
smaller,
here.
I would absolutely be doing that.
I would so do that.
Oh my God, it's the best.
No judgment from me if I see people out and about doing that.
I love
all
it.
about that.
It makes me smile.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I feel like I took us off path. Did we have a
Well, no, I mean, I think it was really good
structure?
though to cover the fact that there is a balance, but that the reason that we're talking about development and socialization is because it is really important, particularly in those early days. And you absolutely need to take every precaution, but this is also why we're chatting about it. So do we want to kick off with the 3-week mark?
So I'll explain what the socialization period is, because I think people get a bit confused over that. So basically, dogs are subject to the laws of learning just like people are, but there is biological adaptations and limits to what a dog can learn when. So the critical socialization period is a period of time where the dog's brain is developing so rapidly, and all these little neural connections are all happening, that their brain is literally a sponge. So everything that you present to a dog during this critical time, so 3 to 12 weeks, let's say, you have very little input and effort that you can put in at this time for a really big response. So one exposure to something will have a lasting response, where after this period of time, their development changes and the brain starts to become more like an adult brain and solidify, And so then you have to start doing things like counter conditioning with dogs and actually training and desensitization to things, because they're going to approach something with more trepidation, with more fear, with more, hang on, this might not be safe. Whereas tiny little babies, they are just sort of pre-programmed to just go up to things, and it's probably not biologically great for them in like a wild dog sense. But the idea is that their mother is with them a lot anyway. So they have like a lot more confidence. They, prior to 12 weeks, they're virtually like immune to having a lasting negative impression into their adult age. So it's something that you can present them with things. You can work around negative experiences quite easily. You can kind of condition them into it being a positive experience in that time frame. But then after that time frame, it's a lot harder. So it's not impossible, and it's not to say that if your dog missed that critical time, oh, they're screwed, that's it, give up, you've got a disaster. But if you've had a lot of negative experiences during that time, then that could be a drama that has definitely been shown to carry through to adulthood, in that this consistent negative experience or isolation will then start to create a dog with more fear, and then with fear comes aggression and all of these things. So that time period is set, and then once they pass through that, you know that you're just going to have to put in a lot more effort to get the same response that one exposure would do.
Okay. I just need to make sure I understand. So up to 12 weeks, are you saying that they're pre-programmed, generally speaking, to be more sort of like, are they robust or oblivious, or just like,
their reasoning's pretty crap at that age?
Right. They're not thinking about their survival at that stage. They're not trying to
put it
survive.
bluntly.
Yeah.
No, Whereas, they're all programmed to survive, but it's more their curiosity levels are really high, so they want to approach things. They want to, oh, what's this? This is interesting. Where the critical period ends is usually where their mother starts to leave them more. And so that's where this predatory thing comes in, of like, okay, hang on, this thing could kill me. This thing is
more
dangerous.
About that.
So they're now coming in they're going through a fear period as well, but then they're more concerned with what's coming so that they can protect themselves better. Whereas little tiny babies, they need to learn about the environment and things. And if they're scared of everything, they're not going to do that. So we need to take advantage of that in a training sense. And,
So then so when they do get a fright in that 12-week period, are you saying it's easier to counter condition them in that if they do get a fright? Because what I'm interested in is like, how do people stuff it up so bad? Like, you know what I mean?
No, it's a lot easier to get them. It's a lot less likely that they'll get a fright at things, not to say they won't, because it's up to each individual puppy anyway, and their personalities, but they will, you can get them over things really quickly and really easily. They're a bit nervous of something, you can keep working at it every day, and, after 3 days, they're jumping all over it. Where if you have a dog that people can sort of stuff it up, like where they're just not picking up on that. So if you've got a dog, for example, one of our puppies went to their new home and was a bit scared of cars coming past. No doubt that was something they didn't really experience out on the farm here, so a lack of exposure. And luckily that person was working with a dog trainer. And so most people would just go, oh, they're scared of cars, we'll just avoid it. Or we just won't work on that, or we just don't know how to fix that. Where that dog trainer was like, great, let's use this now and start to train her around the cars and give her positive experiences around the cars. She was still within that 16-week period. So now cars are no big deal. After that 16-week period, same thing, you would be training the same way, but you'd be doing that for months and months and months and months and months.
Oh, it takes forever.
Or you can,
If you can get it at all, it takes forever.
If you can get it at all.
Okay, so that people understand that when it's going to be easier to fix any of that, they're less likely to get a fright, they're less likely to get upset. But if they do get upset, or there is something that they've developed some kind of aversion to, it's way easier to fix it in that period than if you
Absolutely.
wait. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
their
for
ability to take on that information is so much higher, and their
Okay.
confidence levels are so much higher.
Okay.
So naturally it's easier for them to then make a positive connection to that quicker.
With if anyone's listening that doesn't know what counter conditioning is, pairing up the scary thing with a rewarding thing. So that's like when you're like if they're scared of cars, they would have used like distance from the cars and then like treats rewards or play or things like that. It's like when you have a thunderstorm with a young puppy and you purposely play games with them and give them treats and stuff like that so that they don't develop an aversion to the thunderstorm.
Yeah.
That's probably a good example of ones that that might get missed, or like if you get a puppy in winter and there's not a lot of storms, maybe that contributes to when they do get the summer storms come around. And, like dogs that are fearful of storms, that can be one that's really hard to fix.
Yeah,
it can
that's
be
tough.
a great challenge.
It can, but it's also linked to, I mean, I'm not a dog trainer here, but watching my puppies and we have a storm phobic rescue dog that lives with us. And I think a lot of it is linked to sound sensitivity as well, which is what, as good breeders, you should be playing them thunderstorm noises, getting them used to everything, because they kind of can lump it all together in the sense that if your puppies are growing up to be taught to be confident and approach things with a positive emotional response or behavior, then they're more likely to hear and see a thunderstorm and just go, oh, whatever. Like I've heard loud noises, I've heard like a pop banging, and it's nothing new and whatever. But it's also the way you behave as well, like because dogs are so that they watch you, and even as little baby puppies, like we had a massive thunderstorm here. It was really lucky that this litter was in summer, because I usually have winter litters. We had a huge thunderstorm, and actually that same puppy who was funny with the cars was nervous, and she sort of ran around and was looking around, but then she had me sitting there really quietly with treats and a clicker. It all worked out perfect. This doesn't always happen, but this time it did. I was like busy training them when it happened, so like yes. And so she was like watching her brothers and sisters who were all fast asleep, and there was that like pack dynamic too, where she was like, oh well, they're cool with it and mom's cool with it, and like hang on, we're getting treats. It took her a little bit of time, but she got into it, and eventually she couldn't care less, and there was lightning and thunder, and we just stayed on the veranda and kept playing. But there is that little thing of that's the same puppy that she was scared of. She was the first one to react, and I wouldn't say scared, but she was the first one to sort of walk away or notice it or be a little bit sensitive.
Maybe
so
extra sensitive.
Yeah, you got to watch your puppies for that. Because not all these puppies are going to be perfect just because you've done the training.
For sure.
She's like her mother. Her mother's sound sensitive as well. So and we just told the family about that, so they were already going into that going, okay, she's a sensitive pup, so we're going to get a dog trainer straight away, we're going to work on these things, and that dog's doing really well. So really trainable, but you just got to know where their limitations are. And if you're not doing things like puppy culture teaches you to do, you're not picking that up in your puppies, and that's where your problems begin. You don't see those little things straight away.
I suppose that's also something that you want in a breeder, that the breeder can communicate those sorts of details to you about your puppy as well. Like there might not be questions that to ask.
No, you wouldn't. No, absolutely not, until you start experiencing it. And often it's too late then. Like by the time you're seeing these things, you're like, oh, how do I fix this? Oh, whoa, we're past this period that I was supposed to be doing all these fun things with my puppy at, So I think it's hugely, hugely important for breeders to be educated before they come into breeding. There's a massive drama at the moment with all the COVID breeders who are like, hey, we can get puppies for $6,000-$7,000 and we can just breed our dogs. It's happened, and at the moment we've got stacks of dogs in shelters. We've got like the golden retriever rescue. There is so many golden retrievers in there at the moment. It's never like that. Like,
I'm seeing
it's
puppies
so
for
hard.
sale every day. Like
It's
there's
Same.
and good breeders as well, like that I've been following for a while. Like they've got puppies left over, and I'm
yeah,
like,
it's hard to
what
sell at
is
the moment for
happening?
sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
is it just a flood of dogs in the market because we
Yeah.
went through that dry spell during COVID, and everyone said that's what I think. Understand has happened is that everyone jumped on board and bred their dogs, and
Yeah.
then now we've got an
With zero
overflow of dogs available. Is that what
Mm.
you have noticed? Is that what's
Totally.
happening?
And like, as we don't have litters planned for the rest of the year because of this.
Yeah.
I don't breed unless, I mean, I hop on all the sites and check what's going on. There's 67 litters of golden retrievers in Australia and New Zealand at the moment. That's
Oh my
mental. That's
goodness.
mental. Most of them are sitting on Gumtree.
What would that be normally, Tamara? Like what would
I
be a more
mean,
normal number?
for retrievers, it's always higher than the other breeds,
Yeah.
but around 30,
Oh
like
my
15 to
God.
30, yeah,
What?
is kind of normal. So
Is
at the
now the
moment, it's
time for
mental.
me to buy a discount golden retriever from someone?
Yeah, good luck from who
Is
you
this
buy
my
it from,
son?
though.
Yeah.
A lot of the decent breeders are just not breeding for this reason, because we don't breed for that reason.
Oh,
We
that's
don't breed to pump them out.
interesting.
Yeah, we've got a whole breeding group, and we chat all the time, and all of us are like, no one's got litters, because there's
That
just,
is a
we don't want to
very
contribute.
interesting dynamic
Mm.
because now we've got a flood of dogs, but it would be hard at the moment to get a good dog.
Yeah, well,
Despite
this is
there
the
being
point.
lots
This is
of
why you're
dogs.
seeing them in rescues and things, because it's people that literally started getting into breeding through COVID, made all their money, and then just went. I mean, a lot of them are ex-breeding dogs. There was like 3 stud dogs that arrived there last week, like people just going, oh, well, we're not selling dogs. Let's just get rid of these animals that we bred over COVID. Like, it's so unethical. It's awful. And that's what gives breeders a really bad name. Yeah. Especially for Goldens to be rehomed. It's virtually unheard of. You don't get
for sure.
rescue
It's
Goldens.
so hard to get a rescue golden.
Yeah.
So hard. Yeah.
So you got to be
That's
really careful
crazy.
where you're buying at the moment, and what you're paying. Prices are dropping, which is scary in the sense of good breeding, because we set our prices based on what our animals need to thrive and have good lives. And if the prices are just dropping, it's scary for what's going to happen for big breeding programs that are trying to keep their standards really high, and they just can't afford to. So you will find a lot less happening now. I guess interest rates have something to do with it as well.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So look, we just don't. A lot of when you're looking for your breeders, I know this is probably not what we should be talking about, but when you are looking for a breeder, you want to make sure that they actually breed for themselves. That's the reason that they're in it, or they're breeding to improve the line, or they have like, they can really talk passionately about that. They're not just breeding because, hey, my dog was pretty, and I just wanted to make some money. So we breed when we want to keep something. We kept 2 out of the last litter, for our own benefit. So for showing, for, research, for whatever we're doing it for. So, just
really
be careful currently.
Interesting little problem that we've got going on there.
It happens all the time. Like the COVID breeding thing was that, from talking to our mentors that have been around 50 years, they're like, no, we went through periods where we were giving away dogs, You don't think you're going to make a living out of breeding, because you're not. It might have felt like that, like you were through COVID, but no, you got to do it for the love of animals, and for wanting to put healthy, happy dogs in homes, not for anything other than that.
Oh, interesting. Very. Gosh. The other thing about COVID was all the COVID dogs, puppies that went home in COVID, which I have Nala, who was just before, was very lucky that I got her in December and we had COVID in March. So we did miss out on stuff when she was a young dog, but we didn't miss out on her critical period stuff. So she got to go to puppy schools and do all the socialization stuff and all that sort of thing. We just missed out on like later dog classes, and that sort of, everything shut down for ages.
Yeah, we got one of our dogs in that right as we went into lockdown, so we couldn't even do anything. And this is my first breeding dog, so I was still learning about all this, and I was like, oh, well, she saw lots of people, so she's great with people. She's great. I mean, you can drive a tractor past her because she did all her socialization on the farm, she's fine. But we couldn't go into town. And even now, like, I was literally sitting with her in town the other day, just trying to give her a good experience because she's so anxious going into that situation and, into town and busy cars and noises. And, she's my sound sensitive dog anyway. So luckily she got a lot of training with her breeder that is my mentor now. So thankfully it's nothing major, but it's just something like I just get frustrated with it because it's what I tell people, but then it's kind of a good thing because I can be like, this is how they can be just from missing out on these experiences. She hasn't had a bad experience with it, but she just had no experience with it. And that was on me. That was when she came home to me. So this is why families need to understand this critical period. And the right sort of stuff as well, because I was at the time following like there was this thing about they've got to meet like 100 people, and I think I just had the wrong document because I wouldn't even do that now. There was no emphasis on it being a positive thing, and that's one of the biggest things. You don't want to be taking
because you don't want them to
puppy.
meet 100 horrible people.
No, there's a really good dog trainer, Absolute Dogs, they're called. I follow all this, so they're so good. But he makes a really funny thing about this wizard. He's like, where did this wizard come from? Like with the umbrella and the hat and like the cape and the man with the beard, like they got to have all this weird stuff. And like he's that's not reality. Your dog's not going to see that, and you've got to expose them to the things that they're going to see regularly. You got to take them to the places that you want to go with them, because that's where, as an adult dog, you need them to be really comfortable in that situation. So it's one of those things, like you just have to expose your dogs, but then also expose them and make it positive, because if they're exposed to it and it's negative, the learning is the same. So yes, it's easier to counter condition them, but if you're not understanding that concept, you're not doing that at all. So you need to have a real good understanding of a positive emotional response, and how to create that. So clicker training, lots of treats, training and playing games with them in busier situations, with noise, with cars coming past, like try to expose them in a way that's really nice. Having children come up and give them treats rather than children coming up and grabbing onto them, and like letting your dog approach and being comfortable with people, rather than it just being like, oh, well, they saw 100 people, but one of those experiences was bad. Well, that's the experience your dog's going to remember. They're like us. You get one bad review and you remember that, not the 100 good ones, So, and it will take exposure after exposure after exposure in positive way, which is kind of hard to get, to then to counter condition that behavior that they've now learned is.
That's such a good point as well, because we often have people come into our course, students who have or people asking questions about our course, who have exposed their puppy to a school environment before they were ready, or maybe not taken the right approach, where maybe they've brought their puppy to school and they've just gone about their day-to-day job, instead of gone, okay, I'm going to come in for an hour, it's going to be about the puppy, and then I'll take them home. And so it's less about what we've been trying to say is that exposure's good, but it has to be positive, it has to be in the right way, it has to be for the benefit of the dog.
So the biggest concern has been like a flooding situation where people take them, because people get told exactly that. Like, if you want your dog to be able to handle going to Bunnings, then you got to take them to Bunnings. And if you want them to go and do that, and then you got to take them to that. But then when you're not educated in how to do it correctly, it's a real free-for-all of following that advice. And then the puppies are going to these places, and one of them will be schools, because the dog trainer or whoever has said you've got to socialize them to a school if you want them to be able to cope in a school. But the problem being that the person who's taking the puppy has not received any training on how to correctly read their puppy's body language, how to structure a socialization session so that the puppy is feeling appropriately supported. They take the puppies, like we hear this all the time, they take the puppies to work with them when they're going to work. So the other issue is that the dog's there all day and the person's not attending to the dog and doing things like counter conditioning. They're just doing their job, and then the dog's just doing whatever. And I think the puppies get tired and they get over it and they get upset, and things that you can't control happening are things like, if you take a puppy into a school, you're getting 150 kids running up to you. There's no way that's not happening. There's just zero chance that's not happening.
Yeah.
And people will tell us, like, you know, these things have happened and then their dogs have gotten a fright. And if they don't know how to respond when the dog is like that, we've seen multiple dogs that have come through that have had that negative experience, and they'll never be school dogs ever, because of the way that that environment for them has just been totally poisoned for them, for the it's, you can try and counter condition them as much as you want. These dogs, it's too late. Like, they're too far. The other thing that usually has happened is they've kept taking them. So they're being re-traumatized over and over and over and over.
If we keep doing it, they'll get used to it eventually. And it's like, no. What you need to be doing in that situation is having one child come to your house where your dog's happy and comfortable, and learn to go, oh, well, little people are okay, and you know, they're fine, and they have treats and they train me, and that's fun. And then gradually increase that. Like, reality is they're going to make, their reasoning is going to come in where they see a little kid in your house. They're going to associate that little kid at a school as well. You don't have to throw them in with 50 kids to be, oh, well, they've experienced a school. Like, so you just need to keep, if you just have it in your head that everything your puppy does with you has to be a positive experience. And if you can't control the environment, don't do it. So it's not worth it. You're better off to not let that puppy have that experience, because if it's negative, that's so much harder to get rid of. Like we just spoke about it before, that yes, it is easier to counter condition within the critical period, but it's still easier to have positive experiences than it is to have a negative one, because they do hold on to the negative one more. So because there's fear attached to that, right? So and there's self-preservation, they're animals.
Exactly.
So, it's hard, it's common sense, you know. So
people going into schools, Tamara, like, they can be doing things like going to other places that have got stuff going on, you know, and they'll see stuff. So like cafes, I love cafes for socializing puppies and dogs, because you're usually sitting down and there's a real it does feel like you've got a lot more control over people approaching and stuff like that as well. Like, and the puppies are, you know, they can be on your lap or they sit under your chair and stuff like that, but they're gonna see people, you know, scooters go past, wheelchairs, like, they're going to see stuff like that, and it'll just come and go, and you give them a treat, and it's like so low stress compared to taking them into some really full-on environments where you do lose control of the situation, and it's like, oh wow, okay, this is,
and it's amazing how many people can't read their dog, like the body language. The amount of families that have said to me, oh, the dog just growled at me out of nowhere, or the dog just like got really angry out of nowhere. And I'm like, no, that dog probably gave you like 20 or maybe even 30 chances before they did that. You just didn't see it. So you know, what were their ears doing? What was their tail doing? Were they leaning back? Were they, you know, like, there's so much body language within that. But I think one of the really important things you said there, Sam, was that whole being able to watch a situation. And then as an owner, as a breeder, a trainer, whatever, is teaching them calmness in that situation. So a dog is not naturally calm. You have to teach that behavior into them. And so teaching them that, there's all this stuff going on, and it's okay. You don't need to be concerned with that. Your focus is here with me. at my side. This is where your treats, this is where you're getting your treats. This is a happy place. And all that other stuff going on around doesn't matter, in negative or positive, like just, you don't need to be engaging with everything, which scares me with some puppy schools, because they do this with puppies as well, where it's like free for all, dump your puppy in with all these other puppies, and it's chaos. And then it's like, hey, now let's teach them to sit and drop and rot. Like, you can teach that stuff at home. Like, puppies are smart. Like, they learn that. You don't need to go to puppy school for that. You need to go to puppy school where you've got a trainer who's teaching them emotional stability, like, and is teaching them that, okay, yeah, there's 30 puppies here, you're all on a lead, but you can all sit here calmly and just look at each other. You don't have to be jumping at each other's faces and creating this like elevated chaos. Like, so I think the biggest thing you can do is, I mean, if you want to take your puppy to a school, that's fine. Go and sit like way away and sit there and train your puppy and let them just watch it. There's so much value in just letting your puppy sit and just watch things. Go to a park, watch kids play, and then get really comfortable with saying no to people and going, no, my puppy's training.
Something
so awkward. It's so hard and it's so awkward. But if you don't advocate for your dog and you don't stand up for your dog, you're going to end up with a dog that's reactive, fearful, doesn't trust you, doesn't see you as somebody that's going to protect them and keep them safe. And so then a dog's natural desire is going to be, well, I got to keep you safe, because you don't know what the hell's going on here. You're not safe here. You can't handle this situation. I'm going to handle it for you. You don't want a dog doing that. You want your dog looking at you like, well, what are you doing about this? Because you're, this is the person that's going to keep, you're my protector. You're keeping me safe. So if your dog is, if you got like a kid coming up or whatever, I mean, every kid should ask before they touch your dog anyway. But, if you've got that situation and your dog's actively leaning back and looking uncomfortable, just stop it right there, like intervene in that situation. Don't feel bad. Like, it's for the long-term benefit of you and your dog, and so that dog can be approached by kids later.
It's also good for everyone that it comes into contact with your dog, because it's educating
everyone.
Others.
Yeah.
Sometimes just saying no to someone, that will stick with them for any future interactions with other dogs. Like, you'll
probably get called a crazy dog person by at least one of them. But
that's a compliment. That's a compliment.
Exactly. Exactly. It's one of the hardest things I think I've had to learn, is to just say no, and just be like, no, sorry, I'm training my dog, or that's fine, but you need to do it this way. You can come and sit next to me here and just sit with my dog, and and then give it a treat. And
if you're one of those people that is going to struggle with saying no, that's okay. You don't have to get a personality transplant. That's fine. But don't take your dog places where a lot of people are going to approach you, because if you need to set yourself and your dog up for success. So if that level of conflict is really stressful for you, and it's like, oh my God, or you go and you think you're going to be able to do it, and then you go out and you don't do it because it's weird and awkward and that sort of stuff, that's okay. Just learn from it and choose far more structured settings and things like that. Give yourself a lot more distance between people and things like that. Don't revert to doing nothing. Don't just go and do nothing with the dog because you are now worried about not being able to say no, but also don't go and put yourself in, really busy, like the Redcliffe markets down here, like, where it's very, very busy and everyone's going to want to pat the puppy. Don't go and take it to, I like school pick up and drop off for puppies, because you can be sort of, watching all the kids go by and stuff like that. But if you're going to be really close to the gate, every kid that comes past is going to reach out and touch that dog, and the dog's got no option to avoid it. So be away. Be away. Like the side streets near schools have still got kids going down them and noise, and you can be there, be a bit away and be there before the bell goes off so they hear the bell and things like that. But don't be right in the school and then have the bell go off and it's like this massive abrupt sound, or something like that happens, and if your puppy gets a fright, then now you're going to have to try and fix it. Whereas if you start with a bit more distance and you're outside and you're on the street and they hear the bell and give them a treat and they're fine, then maybe you can start moving a bit closer.
And give
I'm a recovering people pleaser, and so for me, getting Dougie was really challenging as well, just for setting boundaries with people and saying no. But I also found that other ways you can just say, oh, we're in training right now, like we're not saying hi right now, or no, he's not friendly, or things other than no can actually help in those situations, but also not to
if you got to tell a white lie, that's okay too.
But not to over explain yourself either, because otherwise you're standing there talking to people for
and they don't really care.
No.
You know, you're wasting your time.
I worked with a dog trainer when we started, before I started breeding, and I had Austin, who is my COVID puppy, and we were like in the park, and she's really friendly with people because she saw, you know, she had people around her and that. But I was like, oh my God, I can't say no. Like, that's so embarrassing. Like, I just couldn't do it. And so, you know, he was walking one of my dogs and I had her, and like this kid just came running at us, and I'll just never forget, like he just bypassed this kid like a steam train, and he was like so focused, and I was like, oh my God. And like my other dog was in, the kid's like, I just wanted to touch the dog, and he was like, I'm not even looking at you because I'm here for this dog. And it was, I mean, it was extreme, but it was so funny. And I was like, wow, okay, like, and like my dog was like, whoa, like you just controlled that. Like she was like, thinks he's amazing now because you know, but I mean, that's the extreme, because he's just so used to being like, nope, this dog's training, this is what we're doing, you know, whatever. But I was like floundering, and the kid's like touching my dog, and I'm like, oh my God, like
you can often actually pick them. You can pick the people that you just know, the ones that are going to come up and approach you. Easier to just divert.
I like that. We're not vaccinated. We're not vaccinated. Sorry, we're not vaccinated.
That's a good one.
That one. And some people be like, with their dog, you know, they'll be like, oh, well, we are. And I'm like, well, we're not vaccinated. So,
your dog can still carry it on their
can
paws,
just do whatever.
So.
Now I'm going to start being mean to you because you've ignored my gentle, pro-social, like, oh, no, thank you. Don't ignore me, please.
It's a good it's a good thing to give your dog a voice, I think, with all of this. And I guess all the training within the critical socialization period is what we're trying to do. So we're not just trying to throw things at our dogs. Like, sure, we you know, we play different sounds, they get novel items, each week is something new, you know, we make them walk on weird surfaces, you know, we do all that sort of stuff. But underlying all of those experiences is learning that as a breeder and as an owner, your dog needs to be given a language that they can speak with you, that they can understand, because they're trying to navigate like their doggy world and all the things that come with, like in my house with 7 dogs, like they have their pack and they have all these dynamics that they have to navigate. But then they also have to know that, say, let's take jumping up as an example. So, you know, they can't jump up on people. That's not people language. That's dog language. That's how puppies go, I'm cool, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm just going to jump on your face and play. And like, that makes sense to a dog, but it doesn't make sense to people. But by shutting your dog down at that point and, you know, giving them a jerk on the lead and telling them off and yelling at them or shoving them off you or doing all like a negative thing, you're just shutting down their voice. And so like children, if you don't give children a voice, if you don't teach them how to communicate with you, you get frustration, right? Like, you know, and then frustration is anger, aggression. Like, it's the exact same thing with your dog. So then they're starting to come from maybe a place of fear and then aggression. So what you need to be doing is, okay, well, jumping up is okay with you playing with puppies, but with me, let's teach you to now sit. So manding is a really important part of the puppy culture program, and it's basically teaching an automatic sit without telling your dog that. So from like 3 weeks old, I'll sit down, have all the puppies around me, and it's just like click treat for the puppy that's sitting near me, that's choosing not to jump on my lap. I just ignore the one that's jumping on my lap. That's cool, because he'll figure it out sooner or later. He's going to see his mate sitting. So it's like, well, you're greeting me and you're speaking to me in a way that I understand and you understand. There you go, there's a treat. And that stops that frustration. And I think that underlies everything that you do with your dog, is that whatever they're doing, whatever the behavior is that's frustrating you, you need to think about why the dog's doing it biologically. What is that dog trying to communicate? What does that behavior mean to them? And then how can you just replace it with a different behavior that's acceptable to you? So it's a simple concept, but it's something that as humans we try to stop things rather than fix things. You know, if you know what I mean, like we'd go, oh, they're barking, let's just rouse on them. Well, you're just barking with them, you know. Like
It's true.
like that dog's warning you, like there's someone there, there's something happening, or they're in an overstimulated environment. There's always a reason for why these dogs are behaving in this way. And if you can't communicate with them, then you probably need a dog trainer to come and explain to you why the dog's doing it and how to fix it. But I think underlying everything is give your dog a voice, because if you don't, that's where all these behaviors and all this negative stuff comes from. So as an owner, as a breeder, you know, you've got to teach them that if you're scared of something, it's okay. Let's work through it. Let's teach you some emotional resilience, and use your positive reinforcement to do that. It's so rewarding with puppies to see them overcome like a little fear or like a little aversion to something, you know. Like one of the biggest ones, we chuck crates on the ground and then put a tarp over the crate and then try to lure them over it, and they freak. What? Because everything feels weird and the crate's moving and everything's happening. But if you just work at it and you're going, oh, there's one little step, good boy, here you go, click treat, and you keep that consistency with them, like by the next day, some within the session are like running over it. There's no problem, you know. So I just think, it's a really it's one of the most important things I've learned throughout breeding, working with trainers, and seeing my own dogs is and it's probably the most important part of puppy culture, is give your dog a voice and understand them. Really learn what they need. If you're going to have a dog, that's your responsibility. Pay attention always, because the behavior comes from something. There's always a reason. There's never not a reason. And if there isn't a reason, I bet you there'll be something physical going on with that dog, you know, health-wise, that is out of their control.
One of the things that reminds me of is when people bring up, like they might have like a problem behavior, or they're having trouble getting something with the obedience or manners or whatever, and I'll start asking them questions about it and they can't answer any of the questions, and I'm like, this is what my 9-year-old autistic kid clients are like, because they don't have insight. Like they don't know how to answer questions about themselves, and so like that's what I'm teaching them. But when you've got this problem with the dog, but you can't even describe what it is, so you need to go back and watch the dog, like find the pattern. There'll be a pattern of some behavior or something like that, and try and figure out what, you know, get some more information, and then we can try and give you some, you know, dog training advice isn't just general advice. It's based on the dog and the handler and the situation, and there's all these factors and variables at play that we need to take into account. And so once I start asking about them, people just can't answer stuff, you know. They're like, oh, I don't know, which, whatever, like, you maybe they're questions you didn't think of or whatever, but it does take me back sometimes at just how little people are actually observing and watching and getting to know their dogs, you know. Like this, it's kind of scary, you know. Like you always have to sit back before you get a puppy and think about why you're getting the puppy. You know, like,
really good question to ask.
You know, why are you bringing this dog into your life? What do you want to do? Do you want them to just lie on the couch and do nothing, like, or do you need them, you know, especially in your guys' case with therapy dogs, like those dogs have a real purpose. And so even more so if you're trying to get a dog for therapy purposes or working style dogs, you really need to understand this. You need to understand socialization. You need to understand dog behavior, because what you do in those few weeks and what you do when you get this puppy home is going to be the decider whether they're going to make it as a therapy dog or as a working dog or not. And if you miss those periods, then, you know, you've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Do we think that, and that's why we did our puppy program, and that's why we talk to you, because it is too often that people have already wrecked the dog. By the time it gets to us for their therapy dog training, the dog's been wrecked already. And I'm like, oh no, like
it's so hard then to get this, you know, like I'll give you a really intense example. And I actually tried to find the study this morning, but I ran out of time and couldn't. I was in one of my textbooks, I couldn't find it. But I wrote the study down as to what happened. So now this is probably not something that'll happen in most breeding programs, but it probably could with backyard breeding or something like that. So it's the isolated puppy scenario. So you basically take a pup. They did this in a lab. A couple of puppies, and they completely isolated them from social experiences. They didn't give them negative experiences, they just didn't give them anything. So they were weaned. I think they were appropriately weaned at the right age, which is a whole other thing too in terms of emotional resilience in puppies. But they were
horses, I think.
They were just completely isolated, and then they followed these puppies, and I've written it down here. So they had poor learning and problem solving. So when they started to try to train them, these puppies were operating from a level of such fear and such trepidation because they hadn't experienced anything that they actually could not problem solve. Like they couldn't figure things out because their emotional state was so wrecked from doing nothing and from not being stimulated appropriately. They were either really hyperactive or they were completely inhibited and couldn't do anything. So they were extremes in behavior. They were emotionally overreactive. They couldn't encounter novel or situations or environmental situations. They just couldn't face it. Like they were reactive towards new things. They would either have extreme fear towards it or they would completely avoid it and try to run out of the room. Like I can't imagine how traumatic this experience would have been for them. But so they're basically socially incapacitated, just wrecked. So this is a situation where, okay, they were given nothing but like a cage and that was it. They weren't allowed to play with their litter mates. They were isolated from everything, from people, from other dogs. So this might not happen in a breeding sense because even the terrible breeders, the puppies are still at least in their litter, and so they're still learning all these social things off other dogs, and then they're having some kind of interaction with the breeder because they're being fed. Their environment's probably at worst, a dirt run out the back with no toys and no experiences like that. But then what you end up doing is taking that puppy out of that environment. So, hey, that puppy costs half the price. I'm going to buy that one off Gumtree now, and I'm going to take it, and I have no idea about anything to do with socialization training. I've just got a cute brand new puppy, and I'm just going to pour all this love into it and hope for the best. But what you're getting is a dog that's coming to you in a state of fear, despair. Like everything is so overwhelming to this puppy because they haven't experienced it. And if you don't know how to counter condition that, if you don't know how to support that dog, like even if you do know how to support that dog, the platform from where they're starting off from is so it's just so stressful. It's so that they don't have emotional resilience at all. And if you have a puppy with zero confidence and no emotional resilience, good luck training it. Even if you're the best trainer in the world, you're not going to have a dog that's going to go into adulthood and be able to handle situations with a sound sense of mind. They're heavily burdened at that point. And so I'm giving you like a massive extreme, but this does happen. And this is why we're so passionate about people not buying these Gumtree dogs and not buying off backyard breeders, because these are the dogs that end up in the shelters, and then we get the whole adopt don't shop thing, which then you're taking on an adult dog who's been let down by people multiple times, put into a shelter
not
environment.
Everyone's prepared for that kind of dog.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and that's down to the breeder, but it's also down to the families that take them home. And I think you've got to socialize these puppies, and it's not just exposure, it's actual training in those situations. It's teaching that dog to have a positive response to things,
or neutral,
or neutral, calm, like just not a negative, or not experiencing it at all.
So you've actually just touched on something so important there, Tamara, from a therapy dog perspective as well, because bringing a dog like that into a workplace environment, also then there's a safety issue. Like there are a lot of other things that already with a very well-rounded dog, you have to be careful and considerate and do risk assessments for. But if you're bringing a dog into that environment, particularly if you haven't gone through any training, if you're just bringing this dog in, there are going to be some real problems that could come to the surface just from
and it doesn't come from
read your
nowhere, I
dog
guess. No, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that this doesn't come out of nowhere. This comes from, as an owner, you need to know what questions to ask your breeder, especially in a therapy dog setting, or a dog that's, you know, meant for work, or even meant for a household with children. Because even, you know, the most balanced looking dog, if they haven't had these really nice experiences, can react because of where they're operating at when you get them. So it's important to go to the breeder's place, check out the situation, where the dog's being kept. Like most breeders that are proud of their litters and proud of what they do are going to tell you all this anyway. But if you have a breeder that's not willing to talk about what they do, like ask them, what do you do? What do you know about critical socialization? Like sound like a nerd and ask them, because like it's so important for you and your dog's emotional well-being when you get it. So we want to be sending out confident dogs, and that's what we do. And I love when my families come to me and tell me like a problem that their confident dog has. I'm like, sweet, like that's awesome. Your dog's, because the worst thing they could be is a stressed, you know, emotionally unstable animal. Like the best thing they can be is overconfident, and then you can work with that. Like,
for sure. We say that too. I say that all the time.
Like confident dogs are hard work as well, because they're like, what are we doing? You know, like, and they're just going into everything, and they're used to being trained. It's like children. If you read to children early on in life, and if you teach them, like there's studies on kids doing sign language before they can talk, and then their ability to learn is just exponential. Like, so dogs are exactly the same. Like if you give them all these awesome experiences, you teach them to learn, then you take them home, and like they push you to, you know, they want to do stuff. Like they're not sitting around being a couch potato. Well, they will some of the time, but you know, like they want to play, they want to do stuff, they want to learn, they want to, you know, like I've got my little pup, I think you would have seen her on Instagram hanging onto my mop. Like she's not scared of nothing, you know, like she's like chases the vacuum with me, plays, like she's like bowing at it. That's what you want. You want a dog that's like coming into these experiences in a happy, in a positive, and like, you know, you're starting with like this really solid foundation, and then you can just build on that. But it's the building on that you need to know how to do. So get a good trainer if you don't know.
And I think personality traits of the human, probably if you're a person that's maybe overwhelmed or things like that, I think those dogs can become problematic if you are not a good fit for them. You know, and that those dogs might become then like, okay, well, so I obviously am running the show, so that's good. Like, great, you know, and they might become, you know, a little bit less like fun behaviors once they reach their adulthood, and more like quite controlling and demanding type behaviors.
They can be dominant.
But I always tell people, like, man, give me a dog like that any day over an anxious dog who's, you know, like it takes so much longer to treat anxiety, and there's no, you just don't, because anxiety, you also don't know where it came from. Like you don't know, is this a neuro thing? Is this a environmental stimuli thing? Like, you know, and it just, you never know what your success is going to be. They're all, it's so varied. But with like a confident pushy dog like that, you're going to be pretty safe if you keep that dog busy and structured, and
you can rein in the confidence, you know.
It's so like much easier.
That's the best, you know. I love that. I'm like, absolutely, great, that dog's telling you how they feel, you know, like even ones that are a bit growly or a bit expressing themselves, I'm like, well, he feels comfortable enough to tell you how he feels, so respect that, you know. And then work with that and go, okay, that was maybe a bit intense, now let's work on like what the appropriate result should be. And they usually come good, you know, they usually come around because they're not scared to express themselves, and I love that. I think that's the goal for all my puppies is I'd rather send them out with like this inflated sense of self, these huge egos, you know, like you guys are amazing, than these dogs that are just fearful of it. I'd never want to hear that one of my puppies is terrified of something, you know, or like I feel like I've failed as a breeder when I hear things like that, you know. We had a puppy just last week that was in a car accident. And he's fine and they're fine and the car was fixable, but she said, like, she sent me photos, he was fast asleep in the back seat, like he had his little seatbelt on and everything, but she said, like, in that situation of all the craziness, there was not a single minute of fear with him, and that to me was just like, damn, that is awesome. You know, like, that was cool, because we did play a lot of ambulance sirens to those puppies and weird noises and that. But then it comes down to their breeding too. That particular litter would make excellent therapy dogs, because their dad was well known for therapy work when he was alive, and I've got 2 from him now, and just their breeding alone, they're wired to just be chill kind of dogs, like nothing phases them. Like, I took Cammy with me to the hairdresser when I first got her, and she was like blow waves and everything. She was just fast asleep at my feet for like 5 hours, done, you know.
Awesome.
And that's just that's the breeding too. So it's important as a puppy buyer that you talk to your breeders about that too. And that's what you won't get from the whole COVID breeder situation we're talking about before. They won't be able to talk to you about their lines. They won't understand, you know, that the genetics lend themselves to a dog that's better for therapy work than one that's not. You got to ask these questions, and if they can talk confidently and passionately about the breeding that they've done, you're onto a winner. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. That's why we, you know, like, to get their dad, it's all frozen semen, to be able to get that and be offered that was like the best day of my life, because I knew what I was getting. You know, I was like, man, this dog was amazing, and there's not much of him left. In fact, we've got the last of him now. So to be able to breed dogs like that. And we've actually sent one off to do some work in a nursing home, and another one into a family that has sort of quite an emotional time ahead of them and needed some support. So as far as I know, they're both doing really well in those situations. So it comes down to the breeding as much as it comes down to socialization.
So we've already sort of touched on this a bit, but it kind of adds on to that. But the tarps over the crates thing, how much do you see, like, so I think of those kinds of things as resilience building, because you're not super comfortable with it, but I have total control over the environment, so I know that you're not going to get hurt. And then I can give you this challenge, and then you overcome the challenge, and it builds your confidence. But I think it also builds your capacity to be challenged and know, you know, have some confidence in a challenge. And so when you do get a bit scared, the bounce back is better. So we see dogs, like, we temperament test all these dogs, and I don't care if they get a fright. I don't care about that. What I care about is, can they bounce back, and how long does it take for them to regulate again? You know,
that's brilliant.
How do they behave when they get a fright? Did they try and kill something, or did they just, you know, startle, spook? They might bark, whatever. And how quickly did they recover? Or was that it? Like, and that was, you're done for the day, basically, kind of thing. Because we don't need, like, I actually think a dog that doesn't, I don't want a bomb-proof dog, just like I don't want a bomb-proof horse. Like, I think if they're not reacting to their environment, they're not here with me. They're not present. They're shutting down. So I would prefer, you know, same with horses. Like, I would prefer that you see it and have a moment with it, but that you recover quickly. And it's not that you see it, have a moment with it, and then try and kill it for 5 minutes, or bolt away from it for 20 kilometers if I go through a fence, like I want that sort of measured thing. So do you think that doing those activities when the puppies are little, is there a neuro thing there of like, are we building resilience? Like
Yeah, well, challenges build resilience. So with people and with animals. So, and that is a huge part of, you've just explained a whole part of puppy culture just there, by the way.
Right.
So yeah, it's the startle recovery response is what we work on with them. And that's exactly what we're looking at. So, at about, what was it? I think it's like that 5-week period where the startle response comes in. So prior to that, there is no startle response to anything. You can bang a pot and they're just like, oh, sweet, no drama with that. But then we watch for that. So, and it's not always 5 weeks, but it's about that, where they'll look at something and they'll start to go, oh, hang on, like there's something's happening. And so then we work with that response. So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's exactly what you're saying. And then we try to work out how much time is between that startle and then that recovery. The ones that take longer to recover, a lot of the time, we just pull back when there's like a bit of that over reaction to something. So we just pull the tarp thing back. We would take the crate out from under it, we'd put the tarp in the room, and then every time the dog approaches it, we would treat that. And then we'd build their confidence up. But we don't let them get out of it. They still have to do it.
They still got to do it.
Yeah. Do it in their own time and with distance again. So yeah, absolutely. A lot of what we do is challenge them. So we do the barrier challenge where we put their food behind a door, like a crate door, and they have to just walk around it. It's amazing the amount of puppies that try to go through it or freak out. And like, you let them have these experiences and they get better and better and better if they can have it and they get that reward at the end of the day. We don't fix problems for them, like I put up, if they have to run from their kennels to the veranda every morning, and they have to figure it out, and they get lost and they freak out and they lose the pack, and then you're just there to encourage but not fix the problem.
Yeah.
And they'll problem solve their way through it. So yeah, that's basically the basis of what you do with 6 weeks to 8-9 weeks when they go home. Challenge them, scent circles, make them use their scent, like teaching them
what are
all these
circles,
different things.
Tamara?
Oh, so you put like little treats, or you can even like rub the treat on the ground so it gets a scent, and then they have to learn to follow it.
Oh,
they're just playing games. Like a lot of what you do with pups at this age is playing games that challenge them.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. We know biologically that challenges help with emotional resilience and with growth. Like there's the whole growth mindset thing with people.
Oh yeah, for
that,
sure. Yeah.
So if you're not challenged and if you're not working your way through things, no, you don't build that skill. Like, so
I'm working on it every day with my therapy clients every day. Every day.
Changing their mindset completely, as to what you can achieve and that self-talk. And it's the same thing for puppies. They're obviously not sitting there like having what humans go through, but they definitely they feel it, like they feel the challenge, they get frustrated. You see their personalities come out, because they're like, some dogs are just like, oh, we'll just work it out, we'll just keep working at it and then we'll get it. And then other dogs are like, oh, I can't do this, and they're like throwing themselves on the ground and screaming their heads off. It happens. And then it's just knowing your puppy and then like working with that. But yeah, the responses are dramatic, and that does dictate adult behavior as well. So if they, I find the really confident puppies are the ones that will not necessarily get it straight away, but will work at it, are the ones that I really like giving to training homes, to things that they want to do, like agility, or they want to do those things, because I know that puppy's just going to approach all these different situations with a really good mindset.
Yeah, okay. So the problem solving thing, do you know, have you heard of circle of security parenting model? It's
I have briefly, yeah.
The hands, and you've got to like let. I wonder if I've got a picture of it on here.
Is it where you let them go and explore?
Yeah, let them go and explore, and you're the foundation. So you've got to be there for when. Oh, look, I've got an image here. Whoopsie. you'll like this, Tamara. Just going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the hands, like, so you're the secure base and the safe haven. So this is a parenting model. If anyone's interested, you can look into it, but you can do parent trainings on it and stuff. So I need you to, so this is the kid. I need you to support my exploration. So let them go, watch over me, delight in me, help me, and enjoy with me. So they're talking about like checking in. So like when kids will look back and check in, and, you know, like how you'll call out like careful, like checking in type stuff. Something goes haywire out here and then they come back in. So that might be, so they're you're welcoming them back to you. And sometimes it'll be protect me, comfort me, delight in me, and organize my feelings. So it can be any of that. Like it could be just a check-in. Like it could be just, you know, a delight in me check-in, you know. And the hands, the idea of the hands, if you are the hands as the parent, is the base. So always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Whenever possible, follow my child's need, and whenever necessary, take charge. I think it's a really cool, balanced model of parenting where we've got, and it's something that I talk about when people with puppies and even their adult therapy dogs all the time, is we do see a lot of people that aren't willing to let them go and explore. They're not willing to let them problem solve. They're not willing, you know, they're following them around everywhere all the time and saving them from everything all the time and protecting them from everything all the time, rather than letting them go and experience things and check in or go back and ask for help. You know, like it's a cool thing when your dogs learn to ask for assistance with something. Like it's something you're missing out on if you don't let them get to that stage, you know. But sometimes those cues from the dog will be minor, like they'll be tiny little, you know, I just look at you, or, you know, something like that, and they're seeking some feedback or, you know, a check-in with you. And we use our voice and, you know, we use our, you know, facial expressions and, you know, stuff like that. But being the base is also all about you stay regulated. So you stay regulated and they can live there, you know, go. And I just love that you mentioned that you let them problem solve, because I see that all the time where people just want to save them from everything.
It's so cool to watch. A lot of, obviously, like puppy families wouldn't get the opportunity, but as breeders, it's super cool to just sit back and watch like a group of puppies figuring things out. Like, and the ones that, like, it's so much like kids. Like I sit there and I think, am I teaching it again? Because
so
like, they just, like, you know, you put a novel item in there. So like a, you know, like a ladder or like a wobble board. We use a lot of like unstable surfaces with them. And like the one puppy will like touch it and then run away. And then like the others are like looking at it and like, you're mad, you know, like, and like they're all like piling on it and fighting on top of it. And then by the next day, it's like king of the castle and who can get on it and stand on it the longest. And like they create their own games, and like they have this whole little language between each other, like even down to, you know, they're at like this 3-4 weeks old, they start like really like they're such social beings, and they start like really interacting with each other and like forming this little group. And there's like this little alpha male, and then there's, you know, that's for 10 minutes, and then the next one's like an alpha for 10 minutes, because no social hierarchy even exists at that age. But they get into tussles, and you have to sit there and you have to let them figure even that out. Like a lot of breeders panic and they're like, oh my god, they're fighting, and pull them apart. Like, no, that's where they learn bite inhibition. Like, you've got to let these puppies like mouth each other and not hurt each other, but like, you know, the other one will cry and they'll go, oh whoops, that was too hard, you know. Comes back to weaning off their mum. Like if you wean them too early, they don't have a lot of bite inhibition, because what happens is you got to let mum kind of come in and go, okay, that hurts, and she'll be a little bit like evasive with them, pull away or run away, or teach them that social behavior of problem solve, you know, what's happening here now? Like, why isn't mum letting me feed? Well, you've got teeth now. So, you know, that's uncomfortable for mum. So she's going to teach you in a really nice way. If you have a bitch that is aggressive with them, that's not good. That's something that can actually stick with the puppies into adulthood. If they're, you know, if she aggressively tells them off, that's a situation for remove the bitch at that point, because those puppies are not going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
But the mums that, like, they turn it into a game, our girls like run away and they jump over them and they play bow and they'll try to distract them from what they're doing, you know. So it's really cool to watch them interact and play and figure things out. And, you know, even with water, like, we really good in summer, like we put the water out and we let them play in the water, and it's fine. Like, there's puppies that take 2 weeks to put their paw in the water, but that's cool, you know, like they do it in the end. If you just don't throw them in it and force them into it, you just let them figure it out in their own time. And then we do a lot of shaping as well, like with our pups. So taking one puppy away from the group. This is more towards when they're going to leave us, so they start to learn to be away from everybody else. So there's crate training involved as well. But we take them into a room, and I'll just like put something in the middle of the room and just sit and be that neutral and just let them go. And they have to, I mean, it's a very controlled environment, but every time they touch the object that I want them to touch, they get a click and a treat. And then they start to learn, oh, I've got to pick that up. Oh, okay, now I've got to bring it to you. Okay, now we're playing fetch. Like, so, you know, just being able to like be that sort of neutral thing that you were sort of explaining there, and just sitting back and letting them figure it out and not trying to do everything for them is so valuable for teaching dogs to learn. So to grow that ability to problem solve and to figure things out. If you're really interested in that, look up shaping, dog training method that, you know, you can do that with your adult dogs. It's actually it's so fun to watch what they're going to do with it.
I don't mind shaping, but I have a issue with patience.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. Get frustrated, but especially with baby puppies, figure it out.
And
but
like,
it's so good for them.
It's hard to watch other people do it as well. I think it's a hard thing to teach. It's a hard method to rely on. I know some trainers really rely on it with your clients, because the timing is so crucial. And Lord help me if an average human being that rocks up to your dog training school has got any sense of timing about them at all. It is hard enough to get any correct timing, anything like. And so shaping, it just goes so haywire and can be so frustrating for the dog if the timing's not right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're the type of person who's got you've got like a quick thinker, and you've got good fine motor skills and a good reaction time, you should definitely do shaping, because it's so good for the dog. Like, it's such and it works. Like, it's so cool. It's it's a really cool thing.
It should just form a part of your, you know, just like we use it as just something fun for our dogs to do.
Fun. I like a game.
Like a game. Like, it's just something new for them to do. So another thing that's really important with your puppies at that crucial time is positioning and holding them in positions, because they're going to need that. So and being calm in that situation. It's amazing how many puppies can't do that. So by positioning, I'm like sort of you know, your vets will do it a lot, because you have to hold them in a position, put a thermometer up their bum, you know, and have that dog feel really comfortable with pressure on them. And so we do that a lot with our puppies, is just teaching. I mean, we do a lot of show training from young too, and a lot of that is teaching them to stand nice and still and be examined. But that's a really good thing to teach, you know, to teach your own puppies, is whether you go to a show or not, is just teaching them to be examined and to stand still and be comfortable with that, you know, fiddle with their feet, because handling is such an important part of their adult life and what they're going to have to experience living with people. So, you know, play with their feet, trim their nails. We trim nails every week. We use a Dremel, we use nail clippers, like do all of that stuff. Stick your finger in between their toes, you know, brush them, do all that nice grooming stuff, like get them used to things, because pups that, again, are not exposed to it or negatively exposed to it have problems with the groomers, vets, those sorts of things. And that's you know, stuff you can do at home if you're stressing about parvo or stressing about getting them out, you know. Invite people to your house, get them to take their shoes off. You know, if
Yes,
you're really
worried
stressed about
parvo.
going out, like you can still teach all these puppies all these things in your own home and be really safe as well. So
Play some sounds.
I was just going to say, mentioning positioning, that's also, you know, comes into the therapy dog world, because they've got to be used to being manhandled and shifted and moved around, and that's definitely something to think about.
And that's a hard thing for a dog. You know, dogs don't particularly like people in their face, and you know, like that's not their language. Like, so eye contact is huge for a dog. It's quite intimidating. So it's really important to teach your dog these things. I see it every day in my clinic. Like, you know, these adult dogs that can't, they're like, oh, we don't know how they're going to sit still for acupuncture. And I was like, well, maybe if you trained them when they were young to sit still, it'd be easy. But treats go a long way. But anyway, it's still, it's one of the biggest issues is to get a dog that's comfortable and that'll react appropriately. Like, you know, you're working on an area for them that could be quite painful, and you get some dogs that just react and they just freak out, and you know, they're aggressive and there's all this behind them. And then the majority of dogs, because they've had good training and good exposure and good handling, will kind of look at you and then they'll like lift a lip at you, or they'll lick your hands as the biggest, like, please stop, you know, like dogs want to avoid conflict. It's their natural thing, you know. Like, fighting is expensive in nature. Like, they don't want to do that. They don't want to bite each other because it means death usually, you know. They get an infected bite from another dog, like that's the end of the world for them. So dogs don't want to do that, but they'll resort to that if they haven't been taught any other way not to. So so it's, I mean, there's things that you need to teach to keep them safe. There's things you need to teach to just have a nicely functioning dog, and then things you need to teach so that you can then put them into jobs and roles and have them be successful at that. So within all of it, I think it's really important that you get that exposure, but you mostly give them a positive experience with whatever exposure you're putting in their way.
That's the takeaway message. Give them a What about overdoing it, Tamara? Like, what signs should people look for that their puppies, like, what should they aim for? How much in a day, like, of outings? Like, should people be taking their dogs to Pet Barn and then to Bunnings and then to the cafe and then to the car wash, or should they
that's
not do
super
that?
overwhelming for a puppy. So, like, to put it in perspective, when we're training them, they get one novel item a day. And that could just be a brand new teddy in the whelping box. And that, like, wears them out. Like, you know, they're developing so much. And then, like, that first week when you take them home, do nothing. Like, just let them chill. Let them just, like, get used to their house. Like, just you're not going to lose a lot of socialization time by just giving your dog that, just that time to settle. The other important thing,
because I get a bit pressured, like, if we're saying our cutoff's like 12-ish weeks and I'm getting a puppy at 9 weeks or 8 weeks or 9 weeks, I'm stressing. Like,
of course, I got to do everything.
I got to get everything.
Remember, small experiences, big gains at that age.
Okay.
So it doesn't take a lot to get a lot of learning out of it. And take it up to 16 weeks. You're still going to have like a lot of time in, you know, from 12 to 16 weeks where they're going to learn. But obviously the 3 to 12 weeks is where you're going to get the most gains, and then it's going to gradually reduce up to 16 weeks and then kind of drop off after that. So don't be too bound by the 12 weeks. You just might have to do that a little bit more, you know, a few more exposures to that. But I wouldn't be taking them out, you know, multiple places in a day. Puppies need to sleep for the majority of the day. So if you're spending, you know, an hour training, they're going to need to sleep for 2 hours after that. So and watch your puppy. Some puppies are cool with it, but for the most part, a trip in the car to the mailbox is a lot in a day. You know, seeing people's a lot, and you need to give them time to sleep to then let their brain assimilate what they've just experienced, because that's how then they can process it to memory. If you're doing all these things and keeping your dog really active and we're just wearing them out for the day, and then they'll sleep at night and they won't wake me up, Like, no, they're going to sleep like 23 of the 24 hours anyway. Like puppies, there's
That's
so
what
much
people say,
biologically
though.
going on. No, it's true. It's true. They sleep for
But that's what they're doing. That's what people are saying to me, is that they just can't wear this dog out, this puppy. Like, they just got to
I
wear it
hear
out.
all
And
the
I'm like,
time.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that dog's overtired,
It's
and that's why
overstimulated. That's what's
yeah,
happened.
that's
Yeah,
why
you've done too
that's why
much. Yeah.
it's hyperactive now because it's overstimulated, and
Yeah,
you
it's harder.
actually just
And
need
they
to let it
bite
sleep.
when they do
They
that,
do
when they're like, oh,
hard.
this puppy's biting me. I'm like, well, just
Yes,
put it in its pen and
let
leave it
it
alone.
sleep.
Like, it's like a
Yeah,
kid. It's chucking a tantrum because it's so tired.
Needs a nap time.
It needs a nap, and you need to be able to give your puppy like a really nice, calm space to do that without children interfering.
That's another one that I hear all the time, Tam, is that the dog is choosing, the kids are leaving the dog alone. The dog is choosing to play with the kids all day. And I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock.
Because the
Like,
dog can choose everything in the house when it's
yeah,
not locked
like,
up.
of course, it's getting woken up and stimulated.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
let's go. It's not making a decision for itself, like, oh, I might be, I'm a bit tired.
No,
I might get a bit overexcited if I keep playing and don't have a nap. Like,
yeah.
and then I might bite a bit hard. So I'll just sit this one out, guys, even though it looks like you're having a sick time. They're not going to do that. Like, put them in a pen.
They're opportunists. They want to be involved in everything, and they will go until they drop. It's the same thing with over exercising them. Like, you need to make those, you need to understand what the dog can do, and you need to make those decisions for them. So yeah, you need to have a section in your house that is like kid free, is obsessive adult free, like whatever you've got going on, and that doesn't have like 20,000 toys in there. And like, you just chill things out a bit and play them classical music, let them sleep, like let them relax, let them have a timeout, because you're going to have a much better training experience, play experience when they come out from that. But yeah, and don't overdo it. Don't do 50 things in a day. They're not ready for that.
And what about routine?
One experience a day.
Okay.
Like, what's the perspective on routine with puppies as well? Like, I know you want to get a whole lot of stuff done for their socialization and confidence, but is routine something that actually really helps in those early weeks, or is it just more about ensuring that if they've had an experience, then they have a nap? Or should you aim for a nap at a certain time?
No, I think it's up to your puppy. Like, I think you've got to just watch them. If if they're behaving, if they're just getting excessive with their behavior, they're tired. If you've been out somewhere or you've trained them, they need to go in and sleep after that. I just always half an hour after eating, keep them nice and quiet. Don't let them, like, they have a little energy boost after eating. You don't want your puppy running around then. I think it's common sense, and it's understanding your pup just like you would with your kids.
Is that because of bloat, Tamara?
Yeah. So especially Goldens, or your bigger, deeper chested breeds, Goldens tend to gulp their food. They're big eaters. So, they tend to eat really fast, and then they're like really active dogs, as well as being, really beautiful and quiet as well. So if you let them run around straight after eating, you're just messing with their whole digestive process, and then B, setting them up for a torsion or twist, excess gas, bloat, that kind of thing. So as a rule, and I say to all the puppy families, feed in a crate, feed in their caged area, in their X pen or whatever you're using. Our dogs go in their kennels, and they know it's half an hour. And so in terms of routine, like, our dogs know that we get fed in the morning, we get fed at night. Puppies usually fed 3 times a day. And then it's like quiet time after that. Or what we do is feed breakfast and dinner, and then in lunchtime it's like in Kongs or in like an enrichment thing like that, where they're just slowing their eating down, but they're also learning at the same time and doing something that's wearing their brain down a little bit. And then resting. Just get in the habit of resting your dogs after they eat, because just for everything, it's just a good, nice time for them to be calm. Same as teaching them calmness in the house and areas where you don't want them to be, roughhousing, and leave that for the garden. Just having control over spaces in your house is really important for puppies. I just think exercise pens are the best things in the world.
Same.
Just set up an area where your puppy can actually sit and watch what goes on in the house.
Yeah.
It's in an area where, you know, you're around and they're not isolated, because that's also a lot for a pup to be isolated, but they're learning to be away from you but with you at the same time. So it's okay to not be touching you and following you around and doing stuff with you all the time. We're just sitting here, we're chilling. They have their food in there, and you form those routines around their space and their areas, and that's super important for later in life, because they just get comfortable with that, and then it's easy to send them off to be babysat by someone, or
oh my God,
really nice routine where they just chuck themselves in their crate and you know, it's not a cruel thing. It's helping them to regulate themselves and have a safe space in a world that is quite overwhelming to them when they come home.
I find like avoiding all those like annoying behaviors, like chewing things and picking up stuff, like, so puppies pick up things and you don't want them to have it, and people take things out of their mouths, and then they end up with a problem where puppies pick up things and then run away because they don't want to lose it and things like that. Whereas your puppy playpen can just be perfectly puppy safe, and it's like they can just do whatever they want in there.
Puppies will practice what they repeat. So if you're constantly letting them pick up your socks, they're going to constantly pick up your socks. You know, same thing. If you're letting them bark all the time, they're going to keep barking, because we're learning it by doing it. So the easiest way to stop these behaviors, and they're 100%, you get on the golden forums or any puppy forums, it's like, how do I stop them digging a hole? How do I stop them, you know, grabbing my stuff or chewing my shoes? And it's like, well, stop giving them access to it. It's simple. It's really simple, and it's not cruel. Simple. And at the same time, you're teaching them separation is fine. You know, you're not going to have a dog with separation anxiety because it's been with you for hours and hours and hours in the day. So just stop giving them opportunities for that. When you get your dogs home, it's important just to know about the fear periods just quickly before we wrap this up. So you have a fear period at 8 weeks is the first one, which stupidly coincides with when most puppies go home. And that's not ideal. So we actually keep our pups to 9 weeks. Most breeders, sort of are sending them home around that. That 8 weeks is the norm. So just be mindful of that your puppy's going to be really heightened to things that wouldn't normally frighten them. So anything that they've been exposed to prior to this fear period that they've accepted and they're all happy with, in a fear period, they're going to go, holy crap, that's really scary. Everything's really scary and really emotional. And they're not often very, they're not very reasonable through a fear period. It doesn't mean that they're going to be like that forever. It's just it's a snapshot in time. Sometimes it's only for a few days, sometimes it's for the whole week. And all you have to do during a fear period is dial it down. Don't be exposing your puppy to all new things during the fear period and try to get them through it. Don't try to reason with them. Just keep things chill, keep it quiet, don't do much. So you have your first one at 5 weeks. When they're with you have your second one at 8 to 9 weeks. So for breeders in that 5 weeks, it's like the quietest week for us, because we're just, playing classical music and letting them hang out and lots of love and care. And then it's like, okay, 6 weeks, here we go. That's the best week. So, but just be mindful of that. And as breeders, maybe consider in your program sending them home later. It's that 1 week later, or watching your puppies, and then because some of them, they all have it at different times. Within that week, they won't all just like, okay, it's Wednesday, guys, let's have a fear period. So you'll have a puppy that might have it on Monday, one that'll have it on Tuesday, one that doesn't start until 9 weeks. So maybe just run that time out and then send them home when you're sending home a better emotionally resilient pup.
That also works out really well with what you suggested, with just having that first week at home anyway,
be really
when
quiet
they come
regardless.
Home.
I mean, we knew our pups were over it, so we were like, okay, guys, get them out. Because we knew where they were at when they got them home, so that was fine. But some breeders are not up with those periods, or just haven't educated them. So just as an owner, just expect that your puppy might be a little bit frightened of things, overwhelmed, and very quiet in that first week. Everyone's like, oh wow, they're so good, they're so quiet. No, like their world is just imploded. I was like, just wait. Talk to me next week. And then it's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. There's a personality now. Yeah. So.
What's the third one?
What was that?
It was the third.
The two majors are 5 and 8 weeks.
Okay.
There's talk of them going through another one. I think it's at sexual maturity around there, but I think that's more to do with hormones.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I anytime where your dog just looks irrationally scared throughout, and it's sort of coinciding with those times, it's most likely just a fear period.
Because I've heard all sorts of different ages and stuff for the third and fourth. I've heard suggestions that there's a third and fourth and they're all different ages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then it's probably one of those things that we just don't really know.
Don't really know yet.
Yeah.
I think I go off the puppy culture one, and that's from a veterinary biologist that came out with the startle response and then the 2 fear periods.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been pretty consistent with raising our dogs here. I mean, we raise a lot of puppies. So
easier to tell with puppies in a litter, like they're all in the same environment, you know, that sort of thing. You can kind of pick it up a lot easier. Whereas when you take a dog home, it's like,
yeah, what are they scared?
What are they doing?
What's triggering?
That's why it's easier just to avoid it as a breeder and just not send puppies home in that 8th week. Just send them home at the end of that 8th week. You know, if you're pretty confident they're all through it. It's the first time I've hung on to them longer, and it's made a huge difference. It was, hands down. You know, we had one that got home at 10 weeks and one went home at 9 weeks. And they were so confident. They were so happy. There was more that we got done with them in terms of we could drive them for that extra week in the car, or, you know, we took them down to the vet for a little bit of a play and, you know, like hang out. We had to do some fit to fly certificates. So they all got, you know, all handled at the vet and in a crate. And it was all really nice to have them for that little bit longer, because then definitely it made a difference for those families. They all noticed that their puppies were just, you know, coming in a lot more confident. Toilet training was kind of under wraps by then as well. So
I'd be tempted to keep them for, like I know some breeders do keep them till even older.
Puppy culture says to keep them to 12 weeks.
Yeah, to get that done, because you just cannot trust these bloody owners to go and do the right thing and have the time dedicated to it and stuff like that. But to keep them till 12 weeks, I mean, it just takes over your entire life. Like, what are you training 20 puppies? Like, you know, it's a whole thing.
This last one
was a real balancing
craziness. Like, it is a balancing act. And then the thing that you have to weigh up, which for me is why I send them home at this age, is their need for human interaction one-on-one and for this love and attention is so high. And so then you have these puppies that are like crying for you constantly, and then you're also creating that behavior because you can't have 18 puppies living in your lounge room, you know, like you know, our pups are really lucky. They've got these beautiful kennels now that's attached to it's just attached to the room I'm in right here, which is part of our house. So they're like part of our whole life, but they've also got, you know, their own space and whatever. But it's hard because you're also getting puppies that are having little dominance issues within their group, and they kind of need to come away from that because it's really hard to put out fires with 18 puppies. And then, you know, you start to get it's too much. If you had a smaller litter, no problem, because you could start to separate them into, you know, different areas and have only 2 pups together, and they're still gonna like learn to love their family at 12 weeks. That's not you know, the difference. They're still super cute at 12 weeks, but from a breeder's sense, it's probably not the easiest thing in the world to achieve. And I mean, the amount of poo and stuff you're cleaning up, it's like it's nonstop, and it's hard. It's a lot. And I feel that I'm not giving each puppy, there's no way in hell, as good as what you think you are, you can't give each individual puppy the attention that one family can give that puppy. And the experiences. So for me, we do a literal program where our families are like on Facebook group, and every week we have a topic and we teach them every single week until they take their puppy home. So I feel really confident sending them home that I know these pups are going to get what they need, or at least they're going to come back and talk to me if they're not sure. But if you've got a smaller litter and you're not spending time educating families, the safest thing to probably do is to keep your puppies later and get them through the socialization period yourself. But that means taking all these puppies out to places and, like, you know, the logistics of it, I don't know how you make it work.
Do it properly. 2 questions before we go, 2 last things. One, because these are things that, this is something that people ask. Puppies at home all day while people are at work, people get worried about leaving their puppies and they think, I'm taking this puppy to work because I don't want to leave it at home. Do you have any recommendations or information about us? I've always done the playpen thing, puppy proof playpen, and cut back my work days and hours and stuff like that to, you know, I do that for about a month when a puppy gets home. But I've also got other dogs, so I'm not leaving a puppy completely by themselves.
On their own.
As well. I leave them in a play pen with other dogs in the room. Not just out with other dogs, because you never know.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, that's what I would be recommending. I ask my families to pick their puppy up when they know they can have time off, at least for the first week or 2 weeks. The last group out of 18 or 16 families, everybody took time off. That wasn't a big deal. And they didn't take the puppy. There were some we kept later, like another week to 2 weeks later, just to make sure that that family could have them at the right time. So yeah, if you're getting a puppy, just plan it. Don't be like, hey, we're just getting one because it's available now and then we're going to go to work. You know, that's not fair on the puppy. They need you, and especially because of this socialization time, they need you for that time. So be around, shorten your hours, don't work as much. They can be alone for a few hours. It's not the end of the world. If you have no way of taking the time off, then getting family members to come in and break the puppy's day up is a great way to do that. There's really good dog walkers and trainers that'll come to your house and do some stuff with your puppy. Just, you know, giving them, try to get all these social experiences in and not leave them alone, because you've got to train a dog to be left alone. They're coming from having me with them for 8 weeks, their mum's interacting with them all the time, and a litter to sleeping on their own, being on their own. Like, it's a lot, and it's emotionally can set them up for failure if you're just chucking them in a pen and letting them cry it out. That's not the way to do it. You need to be set up and prepared and be around. They need to form a relationship with you. So
don't spend 2 weeks not crate training your puppy. Don't spend 2 weeks off work being with them 24/7 and doting
go
over
out.
them.
Go out, leave them on their own, but do it in small, teach them to be by themselves. And the easiest way, honestly, the easiest way to teach a puppy not to be not to have separation anxiety is your pen. Put a pen in the house. Teach them to be there but not with you. That's the whole basis of leaving them at home alone. It's okay to be on your own. Give them Kongs, feed them, you know, give them enrichment, give them things to do when you're not there.
Last one. Thank you for that. That's going to be really helpful for people. Last one. There's a few sort of like things popping up where people have got little businesses that they somehow get like 20 puppies and they put them in a playpen in a shopping centre and people come and pat them, and they call that animal assisted therapy.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry.
What are your thoughts on that, Tamara?
Oh my God.
Number one, where do they get the puppies from?
Yeah,
Number two,
who is stupid enough to do this?
I see stuff like that and it makes my blood boil, but we're an unregulated industry, so I can't do anything about it. But I see things like that pop up and people are calling that animal assisted therapy, and these are all little therapy puppies, and this is it's literally set up in a Westfield in a massive shopping centre. And like there's puppies and people are just, there's all these people in there and people are just patting the puppies and stuff. But I'm thinking, because
you're ruining those dogs for life.
You're ruining those dogs for life.
Like, that's just horrendous. Like, that's no life for those puppies. And in turn, I mean, there's a lot more to therapy work than patting a puppy.
I know, right? It just irks me. That
No,
really
I think
gets me.
steer clear of that. And if you don't give them an industry, if you don't support it, eventually it's going to disappear, isn't it? So,
And that's
I would be not supporting for the
Huge
general
red flags.
well-being of the dog. I would not be supporting that,
Mm.
let alone the crappy therapy experience you're getting.
Like puppies bite anyway. So like all these people are probably getting bitten by these tired puppies, and puppy teeth are sharp. So I don't know why it's a therapeutic experience. One of the things that, you know, we discuss is that when you make decisions like that, there's no one to stop people from doing it. So they can do whatever they want. But when you're doing stuff like that, those dogs, you know, they should be asleep. They should be at home asleep, not being passed around to there's like 20 people in there, like being just passed, and they're all kids and stuff, being passed around. And who's
Are these
the dog
puppies
support?
like independently owned, or like do these places own 20 puppies?
I think this place owned them. I was trying
what
to find
happens to the puppies when they're not puppies anymore?
I know, but where'd they get the puppies from?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna really quickly see if I can find
I
it.
really need to look that up. That's crazy. I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, no, neither.
But yeah, from a dog loving and owning and understanding perspective, like the amount of trauma that's causing those dogs that's sad. Like you say, they should be at home sleeping. They should be with their families, having proper love and attention, not being used in that way.
Yeah, not manhandled like that.
No, that's awful. That's just like, you can't control any part of that puppy's environment at all.
There's no relief.
Nothing. That's a level of cruelty in my mind.
It's just one of those things that I just think we might as well mention it and say, hey guys, it's not actually a good idea to be doing that sort of stuff to puppies. You know what I'm saying?
No. Well, every moment that puppy's experience is open to constructive or destructive learning. So, you know, every time a kid holds it wrong or overdoes it or whatever, that puppy's having all these learning experiences going through their head, that's going to affect them into adulthood. So if it's like people are independently owning these dogs and lending them out for this, like, you're putting your dog at massive risk of having really bad behavioral problems from that. And then if it's an organization owning them and just doing this, like, I'd want to know what welfare, you know, sort of situation these dogs are in and what happens to them afterwards. And because the puppies coming out of that are not going to be well socialized. That's a perfect example of bad socialization or a misunderstanding of socialization. That's flooding them. That's no.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Okay, good, because that's what I thought too. I thought that too, and it's disappointing to see that sort of thing can still get out there, because it's it's really one of those things that you just go, okay, well, have we really not moved past that yet? Like, you know, we're still doing stuff like that, really? Okay.
Such a lack of understanding.
Yeah, it is. If I find it, I'll send it through to you tomorrow.
Yeah, please do. That's full on. I have questions for these people.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody who's still listening to us. I bet you are, because even if we've been talking to you about this on a couple of commutes to and from work, maybe. But I'm sure you're still listening, because it's just riveting, this stuff. It's so absolutely riveting.
There's so much to learn, isn't there? Like, even just in preparing for this podcast, I was like, oh wow, like so much stuff that I'm going to do in my next litter now. You know, like just going in depth with stuff, because you kind of get caught up in your processes and what you do. But
like, we might need to just have another podcast and review every time.
Just catch up every time. Yeah, I think we should do one when I've got puppies next time.
Yes.
That'd be interesting.
But we'll come and fly to you to do the podcast for that.
Yeah. I didn't see you at my puppy party.
So we can play at the puppies. Yeah. Never did get your address.
You promised me you were coming. Oh, didn't I?
How that happened?
Yeah, we'll have to do one with all of you in the whelping box.
Yes.
Love it.
Thank you so much, Tamara.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's always a pleasure talking to you girls.
I'm sure we'll speak with you again.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you're interested in studying with Therapy Dogs Australia or you have a few more questions before deciding, please get in touch with us by emailing courses@therapydog.com.au or visiting our website at www.therapydog.com.au for more information and FAQs.